Chapter 3 Faith and Trade, 800 to 1510. Introduction. Medieval Africa saw the rise and fall of some of the continent's most famous empires, some Islamic, some Christian, and some adhering to indigenous religions. West Africa's Ghana, Mali, and Songhai empires all rose to prominence in this period, as did Zimbabwe's Muhumutapu Empire. The cultural and architectural achievements of these empires have secured their place in world history. Mali's Mansa Musa, for example, hired an architect to design the Madagu Palace, the Gao Mosque, and the Djinguereber Mosque in Timbuktu, the Mali Empire's largest city. In 1491, Askia Muhammad took over the Songhai Empire and developed Timbuktu into a center of learning and Islamic culture. Oba Ebuware, a 13th century ruler of the Benin Empire, built a palace with famed bronze plaques telling the stories of his kingdom. From Ghana to Mali, one of the greatest and most lasting empires of the period was the Mali Empire. Its predecessor, the Ghana Empire, began to decline in power in the late 11th century following the arrival of the Almoravids, a militant Islamic group. Ghana converted to Islam around 1100, but over the next century suffered from drought and eternal strife. The empire was finally brought to its knees in 1203, when its capital was captured by the Susu people. By 1230, the Susu had extended their control over the region, but this proved to be short-lived. The Mali Empire came to power in the mid-13th century after its first ruler, Sundiata Keita, routed the Susu at the Battle of Karina in 1235. Ruled from its capital at Niani, the Mali Empire expanded to gain control of the same trade routes once dominated by the Ghana Empire and amass extreme wealth from the lands it conquered. Major religions. At its peak in the 1330s, the Mali Empire encompassed around 20 million people. During this golden age, Mali became a shining beacon of Islam in Africa. With many great Islamic scholars of the period and descendants of the Prophet Muhammad following Mali ruler Mansa Musa back to West Africa after he had completed his famous pilgrimage to Mecca. Islam, which was introduced in Africa in 639 CE, continued to take hold throughout the continent. The Zanj slave rebellion of 869 to 883 CE, which saw the revolt of enslaved people taken from Africa to what is now Iraq, was inspired by Islamic ideology. Chad's Kanem Empire converted to Islam in 1075, and the king of Jen, a kingdom on the Niger Delta, converted in the 13th century. Many of Africa's most impressive mosques date from the medieval period, including the Mali Empire's Great Mosque of Jen and the Djinguereber Mosque, as well as Ghana's Empire's Larabanga Mosque. Islam was not the only religion spreading through Africa. Christian churches were also established in this period, most notably the spectacular churches of Ethiopia. Elsewhere in Ethiopia, a small but resilient community of Ethiopian Jews also flourished, despite ongoing persecution by Ethiopia's Christian rulers. Christianity's spread in the late medieval period was partly a result of increasing contact between Africa and Europe. The Portuguese age of exploration brought traders to Africa from the 1440s, and Portuguese missionaries led to the conversion of the King of Congo at the end of that century. Global connections. The medieval period was a time in which international trade flourished and new connections between disparate nations were made. This was certainly the case in East Africa in the 15th century, when a fleet from Ming China arrived in the ports of Mogadishu, Brava, and Malindi to trade and establish diplomatic relations. As a result of both trade and conquest, black people moved to other continents by the late medieval period. While the trade across the Sahara had brought enslaved Asian Africans to Asia, there are also free black people living outside Africa. The Moorish conquest of Al-Andalus had brought North African people to Spain, but blackamoors also began to appear in English and other European records. These people traveled on trading ships from West and North Africa or via Spain to settle in European cities. They found paid work, were baptized, and started families, founding generations of Europeans with African heritage.